I think I want to start off saying a couple of things. First of all, this is really, really hard for me to talk about, and I needed to say that up front. I had an abortion about 30 years ago, 1993, and while a few of my friends know about it, I've rarely talked about it. And when this opportunity came up, I realized that there's so much I've been wanting to say and so many different emotions that, and lots of unresolved things, lots of different thoughts about how I wish things could have been or would have been or should be, that I really feel like now is the time to talk about it.
On June 24, 2022, Roe v. Wade was overturned. This was a court case which supported the woman's right to get an abortion. This was applied federally, meaning no state during the years 1973 to 2022 could fully ban abortion. After the court case Dobbs v. Jackson, which overturned the federal legalization of abortion, outrage ensued. People, particularly those with online platforms, saw this overturning as unconstitutional and sought to educate their audiences about abortion and rights regarding it. People online also began to educate on how to self-induce a miscarriage as the fear of not accessing abortion rose. This is not unlike the actions of Marie Equi, a physician in the late 1800s to early 1900s who fiercely supported abortion rights. Dr. Equi focused on providing medical care to lower-class people and often treated them without pay. Abortion during the time of Dr. Equi's work was heavily restricted and banned across the states. Though she never faced legal consequences in regards to it, she worked illegally to help women terminate their pregnancies. Women at the time, particularly those of lower class, had many unwanted pregnancies and many children to care for. Abortion was important then, as it is now, and too many children to support when lacking the financial stability to do so would result in unhealthy and non-prosperous lives for both the mothers and their children. Abortion was necessary for some to survive. However, due to the laws preventing many from getting safe abortions, they turned to more accessible but dangerous methods. Lead pills were one of the most common ways of doing this in the early 1900s. In her work to supply women with proper medical care, Marie Equi participated in activism concerning her expertise in women's health. It was for that reason that in 1916 she was arrested with nurse Margaret Sanger for defending the distribution of pamphlets Sanger made about birth control.
I personally have at least one friend who's older than I am, and she ended up, when she got pregnant, she was actually raped, and but by an old boyfriend who was trying to kind of entrap her that way. And at the time, she couldn't get an abortion here, and she lived in San Rafael. She ended up going to Mexico, and I don't really know the circumstances of it because we've never really talked about it in that much detail. But I would have to say many, if not most, of the women that I know, that I would say are all ages, from the 40s to 80, have all told me that they've had abortions.
Ironically, those states that have recently restricted abortion by making it illegal or putting in place highly restrictive bans, for example, gestational bans, are in fact the places that have the least opportunity or the least health and social services for pregnant people and their families. We asked people in the Turnaway study about their life plans, for example, their hopes and goals regarding education or their profession or career. And unfortunately, we found that people who were denied abortions were a lot less likely than the other group to even have aspirational plans, but also to achieve them.
Well, I think the negative effects really would have been on the resultant child, because I wasn't ready to be a parent, and I wouldn't have made a very good parent at that time in my life. And that child would have suffered. We wouldn't have had enough money for groceries. We wouldn't have had a place to live where, it was big enough to raise a kid. We wouldn't have been able to put them in a good school. wouldn't have even been able to think about those things, because that's not what I was thinking about at that time in my life. I was too young, too inexperienced, and I wasn't ready.
I was working full-time at that point. I had a boyfriend who I thought I was going to marry. We briefly moved in together, and things, for reasons that I don't really want to get into right now, but I realized very quickly that it was a wrong decision, that it wasn't going to work out in the long term. So we split up after really just a few weeks of living together, and it was right after that that I realized that I was pregnant. And it led me to a lot of soul searching, because at that point, like I said, I thought I was going to be getting married. I wanted to have children. I didn't feel like I was really in a position, I wasn't in a position at all to do it on my own. I mean, even though I had a job, I wasn't really that financially secure. I didn't have any support, didn't have any family. And then when I started finding out things, realizing things about the father, I started to worry that if I did have the baby, that he, could become abusive, or that he would try to take the baby away from me. It just brought up so many different things. I really didn't know what to do. And I ultimately decided that I was not ready to bring a child into the world myself.
I didn't make or have very much money. I was renting a very small apartment with the guy I was in a relationship with, and he had a mental health diagnosis, and he also didn't want to be a father. He was very insistent that he could not do that, and I wanted to finish cosmetology school, and didn't even know if I wanted to be with this person for very long. So it really would have cut my life off.
So that's another thing that I feel like when I hear people talking about abortion from a legal standpoint, it really irks me, because I feel like while it does need to be legal, I feel like really the emphasis should be on what's best for the actual person that's going through it, because it's a really tough decision, and like I said, it's a necessary evil.
No, I don't regret getting the abortion, because I've had the freedom to live my life making the choices that I knew were appropriate for me at the time in my life. I want women to have their freedom, particularly young women, and denying women access to abortion enslaves women. And a teenage person with a uterus has every right to live their life, without being held down by being forced to have a child.
Around 70 years before abortion was first legalized, Marie Equi already recognized it was important. Today, it seems we have regressed. In many states, abortion is completely banned. The argument around abortion rights have been turning Americans against each other. The population's stance on abortion is split. 52% are pro-choice and 44% pro-life. We are split in half as a society. Marie Equi showed us that we need to fight for what is right. Abortion is a human right and should never be restricted. While you as an individual may not be able to make abortion a constitutional right, what you can do is donate to nonprofits dedicated to the cause. The Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project is dedicated to financing abortion-related care for those who cannot afford it or do not have access to safe medical care.